Hi, and welcome to my presentation on digital literacy in the classroom. Today I'm going to be focusing mainly on how to use audio in your classroom at the English Language Arts level of grades 9 through 10. First, we have to begin with the significance of audio in the classroom. According to Ken Halla, students prefer to receive information through sights, sounds, insights, and hunches, as well as through pictures, diagrams, graphs, demonstrations, words, and sounds. So in order to understand why you should use audio in the classroom, you have to understand how students prefer to learn. So if they prefer to learn through sound and through sight, pictures, diagrams, you can do this by incorporating tools using audio, such as podcasts and screencasts. If you look to your right, you'll see a digital literacy diagram pointing out the components of digital literacy. These are skills that we're promoting at the high school level for students who are coming in. At this point, they know how to use Microsoft Suite software, they know how to use Google software at this point. So now you want to start building on those skills. This can spark creativity. No longer are they creating just the typical boring PowerPoint. They have to kind of use their creativity with audio and demonstration by providing links and interaction with their PowerPoint. Collaboration is another thing that is promoted in digital literacy that I truly believe can be done through audio with podcast. By creating a class podcast, or even partners or group creating their own podcast that they update on, say, a monthly basis or even a weekly basis. This would allow students to use audio together to either have a conversation via the podcast or to respond to one another via podcast. And these are tools needed in both the workplace and when they further their education at the collegiate level. New York State Common Core Learning Standards for grades 9 through 10 also promote the use of technology in the classroom using audio. So to begin with, the standard for 9-10 for writing is to use technology, including the internet, to produce, publish, and update individual or shared writing products, taking advantage of technology's capacity to link to other information and to display information flexibly and dynamically. So I think by using the internet to publish their work is something that students would be moving to that next level. So before they would just simply hand in an essay, but now they could publish it to a podcast or to a screencast. The next standard for grades 9 through 10 is Standard 5 of Speech and Language, which is to make strategic use of digital media in presentations to enhance understanding of findings, reasonings, and evidence, and to add interest. So you can do this, for example, using textual, graphical, audio, visual, and interactive elements. Your interactive component would be in a screencast linking a YouTube video that students may have created themselves or may have found somewhere on YouTube. So going to that link and then now jumping pages to YouTube would be kind of an interactive element that shows you jumping around a little bit. So advantages of audio in the classroom. For the teacher, it provides differentiated instruction. Teachers are always looking to see how they can differentiate in the classroom for kinesthetic, auditory, and visual learners. For the most part, auditory learners would be touched on for both podcast and screencast. You would then, for screencast, also hit visual learners. And if you allow them to do it, you're then working with kinesthetic learners, allowing them that hands-on activity of creating their own product. Next, it can be used for demonstration and review of concepts. Audio is a great way to introduce a topic, but then to also review it. I believe that if students are in class, or if they're not with the teacher at all times, which they're not going to be, especially at home or in the study hall, they don't have the full ability to review a concept the way you would in the class with you. This way, you could talk through a concept or a theme, a story, whatever you're reviewing, and allow students to listen back to your presentation at any time. It also allows for student absences. So if a student isn't in class, like I said, you could send them the link and they could catch right up on what was done that day. The final thing that I think is one of the greatest advantages is that a podcast or a screencast can be recycled the next school year. So if you create a presentation that you've now put more effort into than your typical PowerPoints, then you'll be able to reuse it the next year and add to it, show students how you use it. Student advantages. It builds digital literacy skills needed to further their education and career. So students are able to kind of move forward with their digital literacy skills. We know that they're coming in at this point knowing quite a bit with digital literacy. So now we need to learn more than them at this point and build on top of that and keep moving ourselves and students forward. It creates collaborations with peers. I just recently spoke about this, for instance, with the podcast, kind of going back and forth with one another. And then it also enhances understanding of material through digital interest. So you're taking that interest in using technology and then making it so that students understand material. For instance, with Shakespeare, that's a very hard material for students to grasp. For instance, Macbeth, you could use Act 3, Scene 2, and make a podcast talking about the themes of the scene or the conflicts that occurred. You could then have students reply back with another podcast and explain whether they agree or disagree with the statements that were made. So you can kind of have students be more engaged with the material that they may have at first had trouble understanding, but now have talked their way through. Here are some tools that I would recommend. So I'm going to start with Vocaro. I would recommend Vocaro because it allows for a simple audio podcast creation. You simply click on the link on the home page to record. It records for you, and then there you go. You have your podcast saved. You get a link to your Vocaro podcast. So this doesn't really require any kind of membership or anything. It's free, which is what's so great about it. I think for starting off, Vocaro is the best option because it allows you to teach yourself easily how to do it, which is then kind of moves you to be able to teach the students. You have to be comfortable with this tool in order to teach it. So I think starting off with something simple is best. Next would be Audioboom. This kind of steps it up a little bit. It's a podcast using a photo. So you could use a photo for, say, an author study of Jodi Picoult. You could have her photo there, and then students could create a podcast about her. The only thing with Audioboom is you do have to pay for it as a membership. So this would be something that you would either invest in as a teacher or within your district if you decide this was best for your curriculum. And then finally, Screencast-O-Matic. This is great for both yourself as a teacher and for your student. It enhances PowerPoint presentations with audio. So you're able to do exactly what I'm doing now and showing you a PowerPoint presentation, clicking on links, and speaking through the presentation. Students who have a fear of speaking publicly are able now to record this at home or in another classroom and then stand up there and present and kind of gain that confidence they need to one day speak for themselves for the presentation. But it's also something that anybody could learn how to do. It's not difficult. Screencast-O-Matic is pretty easy to use. It records right on any computer. I have a Mac and it recorded fine on it. It uses your internal microphone, as do all of these tools, so you don't need any additional microphone, which is great. So I would highly recommend these in the order that they go in, because they kind of go from more simplified to more intense kind of tools that you could kind of build up to. So finally, these are my references. I used Ken Halla, Deeper Learning Through Technology from 2015, which is pretty recent. And I enjoy his book. It was kind of enlightening on how to use the screencast and the podcast. And I hope you enjoyed my presentation. Thank you.